Welcome to the Finance Committee. It's Tuesday, August 8th. With me is Alderman Slottick, Alderman Stoyer, Alderman Dwayne. I am Alderman Moore. I would ask for an approval of the agenda.
So move approval.
Could I ask for an amendment maybe to move the purchase manager up to the
Yes.
first item?
So moved. Second.
All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Great, so item number 5 then will be the report of the purchasing manager. A is consideration with possible action on request for approval to award a 2-year contract for laundry floor mats uniform delivery service to Aramark for $54,274 with options for 3 one-year renewals by mutual agreement.
I really haven't been paying Joe to do this, so thank you.
Well, we could chip in a little.
Yeah, this is a service that is used by multiple city departments. So we brought it to the Finance Committee, could have gone to probably any of the committees. These are for uniforms that are required by various departments, floor mats that, we use throughout the winter, and then laundry for like the fire departments, sheets and towels and stuff like that. We went out for quotes. In your packet, you can see the quote results. The vendor number 3, Packerland, only quoted on the mat piece, so that's why their total cost is very low. But on the mats as standalone items, they were the highest. So the lowest overall vendor is Aramark, and that is our recommendation to receive the award for this contract.
Move to approve.
I just wanted to make a point that it was like 11,000. A lot of these vendors that come in on other projects, a lot of them seem very, very close, and that just seemed, a little bit farther up. So I agree with Aramark. So Tom, you have a
Motion to approve.
motion? Do we have a second?
That's
I'll
it.
second.
So you-
I'll second it. I'll
That's
second.
Joe's question.
Yeah, I'll
Motion by Tom, second by
I
Alderman.
was up late.
Rick, who is
Vice
the
Chair
current
Stoyer.
provider?
Aramark is the current provider.
Aramark is the current,
Yeah.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Great, thank you. Item number 4 is request by the Finance Director to review and discuss 2016 year-end financial results and management letter for the city. The city's audit partner will be present to discuss documents with the committee.
Did we approve
Joe, I think we
minutes?
forgot the minutes, number 3.
Oh, look at that. Well, let's take item 3 real quick and ask for approval of the
Move
minutes
approval.
from July
Second.
11th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Are we sure?
No.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to number 4, which is the request on 2016 financial results.
Okay, with us from Shank, we have Scott Sternhagen and Josh Swanson. Here to give us a report on 2016 year-end.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hello, I'm Scott, this is Josh. As was in your packet was the management communications. This right here that you didn't receive but is available to you, I'm assuming right now.
Yep, we have stacks downstairs.
Yeah, this is the annual financial report, the CAFR. We're not gonna go through it because it's 216 pages and you probably don't wanna be here that long. But all the information is here. Josh is just gonna touch on a couple things on there, just for clarification. But there's a lot of good information here, financial statements, statistical information that is prepared by the city here, and that's really about it. But most of the stuff that we'll go pretty much through the management communications that is in your package. But Josh is just gonna touch on a little bit of the audit opinion and so on and so forth, just so.
So included in the comprehensive annual financial report is our independent auditor's report. Just briefly describes what an audit is, what management's responsibility is for the audit. And at the bottom of the page, it discusses our opinion, which is a clean audit opinion. It's unmodified, meaning we would not make any material modifications to the numbers in this report, which is the result you want from an audit. Goes on to some other standard language, and like Scott said, we're not going to get into the details of this. But there is an additional report because you spend more than $750,000 of federal money. You are required to get a single audit. So included in the scope of our audit is compliance testing for various federal and state programs. And from our audit, we did not note any non-compliance from those programs that we tested. I know that's brief, but otherwise I'll jump to the management communications, which is what you do have in front of you. Starting on page 1, this just goes into a little bit more detail about the audit, how we plan the audit, look at internal control, use some sampling. Just gives a few more descriptions for the audit. Bottom of page 2 and into top of page 3 discusses some estimates from the financial statements that obviously actual results may differ based on the information that we have at that time.
You're saying page 2. Yeah, I'm just-
Lars is different, his page.
My
Oh,
page two, yeah.
If you look at 4C, that's
4C
page,
will do
that's
it.
their
Yeah.
page.
Oh, I see. Never mind.
All right.
That discusses estimates. Difficulties encountered performing the audit. We did not run into any significant difficulties with management. Diana, Pam, the finance department they were all very helpful getting the information that we need. We also work with other various departments. We look at controls and procedures, so it's not only the finance department, it's a large number of different people in different departments that we work with. So we're definitely very appreciative of the assistance that we get, and it makes our job easier. So with that, Scott's going to continue into the financial numbers from the management letter.
Okay, so on page 5, that's sort of gives financial comments and observations. Gets into the financial information. So the main one, the one that you guys probably spend a lot of time on is your general fund. And you can see the total general fund ended the year with a $17 million fund balance, a little over $17 million. We do a little comparison to the prior year there, and you can see in total it did drop. Your fund balance did drop $1.3 million in 2016. A lot of that was, well, most of it was planned to do that. You can see in the previous year that you did have about $3,377,000 of assigned fund balance that you were going to use in the 2016 year. You can see that dropped significantly during the year. So the fund balance, total fund balance went down, but that was planned to do. And another portion that we like to see is the unassigned fund balance. That totaled about $13,855,000. And then I'll get into that a little bit more. We have some graphs and some information on that.
Can I jump in real quick? When he
Yeah.
says that we had planned to do that, if you remember at the end of 2015, there was a council approved almost $1.5 million worth of carryover to be spent in 16 because our fund balance, because we did have a good year. So that was intentional additional spend of fund balance. So, I mean, we had a list of many, many items there that had been approved.
Then you'll see your special revenue funds. You have a lot of special revenue funds for the various areas down there, and you can see that at the end of 2016, there was a little over $19 million in special revenue funds. A big portion of that, you can see kind of in the middle of the page, is the Lambeau Field excess sales tax. I know that you guys talked about that, and I think you guys have talked about where you're going to spend that money. That was about $4.2 million. And like I said, sanitary sewers, storm sewer, equipment, just various different items there. And then your debt services on the bottom of the page that you've set aside for future debt service payments. And then page 6 goes into the wide variety of your capital projects funds. You can see there is a lot of them. Relatively consistent, a lot of capital projects funds you borrow for, you spend the money. Same thing with your tax incremental districts. So nothing there really stands out. If you flip to page 7, you will see the ones obviously that have parentheses. Those are the ones that are in a negative. And most of those are your tax incremental districts. Some of them, TID 18, 17, those ones just started up, so that's normal. If you're not going to borrow right away, that you're going to spend down the money. You have some other ones that have large deficit balances. So.
Question real quick?
Yeah.
On page 6, when it's got the tax increment districts in here, 15 versus 16. Now, tax increment district 6 and tax increment district number 11 are both being proposed to be closed early.
Okay.
How is the closing of that TIF, how is that going to affect the balance moving forward? I mean, it affected in a positive way that now these are just specific revenues that are coming into the city here.
Mm-hmm. So what happens is, if you're going to close early, obviously, finance has done the work. They're going to say, okay, this is what we have excess funds right now. We've recovered all of our costs. We're not doing any future projects. So when that goes, the assessed value of that TIF goes back into really the general pool of your value. So what you will see in your general fund, or not your general fund, but all the other ones, the value will go up that you're able to tax.
So that,
So that the school's gonna get it, the
Right.
county's gonna get it, all the taxing jurisdictions.
the first year it's closed, the whole balance comes in, and then in the next year, you're only seeing the tax increment on whatever the increment of the TIF was. So in 2017, if we close them this year, we'll see that sudden influx of funds, and then in
In 19.
2018,
In 19, it's actually a year delayed.
so it's a year, okay, right.
Depends when you close. If you close it within the first 6 months, or I don't know the exact drop date deadline. It depends on the timing of the year. Because if you don't close it till September, then you get that increment in that next year. And then if there was excess funds, then you'd spread that across all the taxing jurisdictions.
Okay.
But then the value
Does that
will
make
come
sense
in.
what I'm asking?
Yes,
then?
yes.
In year one, you're going to see a rather large influx of funds, and then in year two, it's back to the normal,
Well,
it's
the
not
base
taxable
is
value.
already in
Mhm.
the general, to all the taxing jurisdictions. It's only the increment that would now go back in.
And that's just the
Okay.
value. So you're not gonna be able to tax the whole portion, just the city's portion.
Okay.
Because
Of
for
course, yeah, I
instance, if
understand
the
the
increment is
taxing
$100,000 and City of Green Bay's is 20% of that,
Right.
you'll pick up 20,000 versus the 100,000 that the increment was generating. Because that's gonna be spread across the school, the county, tech school.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
And as you can see, so like, if you look at TID number 5, it doesn't have a balance this year because it went from a positive on the first page, and went from a positive to a negative. So that's on the following page, so just to kind of follow up, because you can't have a positive assigned or fund balance there. So total government fund balance, for all the governmental funds is about $75 million at the end of the year. So you can see, actually, when you do look at it, it's from 15 to 16, the whole thing shifted about $2 million. I mean, that's pretty consistent looking at how much funds the city is maintaining here, so. As I said, we were gonna talk on the general fund balance a little bit, and, there's a chart here depicting, illustrating, really how it's broken down and the fluctuations in the past 4 years. You can see from, 15, you had a big spike, but a lot of that was set aside for, you can see in the green there. Oh, you guys, they don't have color, they don't have color.
We're cutting costs.
Yeah.
Get tablets to be color.
You can see that was the big swing. So like I said, total fund balance went down, but really the unassigned portion, which you guys want to monitor, that's really what you have available to spend, did increase in 2016. Flip to the next page, it kind of has another graph showing really from a standpoint of the overall fund balance and the unassigned.
And since we don't have color, which line is the overall and which is unassigned?
This one is, the top one is the overall.
Okay, got
Yep.
it.
Oh, you know what? The ones that got mailed to us are colored. When we photocopied them from our
Okay.
packet. Are we verifying here?
Yeah, there.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
More paper for you.
Another tree.
I'll wait till you guys flip it's page 8 that we were on. There we go. Again, the general fund, which is the main one that you guys look at, police, fire, DPW, parks, general admin. Here's a balance of 17 million, which we like to look at the general fund expenditures. What percentage of that do you have set aside of your expenditures? And really, at your overall at the end of 16 was about 20%, a little over 20%. Unassigned went up to 16.5. Really what we like to see and what the policy is anywhere from 15 to 25% of general fund expenditures, and your policy does state that too. So you're in line with your policy. You're at where we would like you to be, and same thing with unassigned. It's always like normally 2 months of expenditures that you want to have, 2 to 3 months, which is again 16 to 18%. And I believe your policy states that you want to be at
It's like about
9 to
16.
9 to 16. So you're right where your policy says.
Actually, we're right at the top end of what the policy said, right?
On the unassigned, yeah. And then what's the overall?
Overall,
17 to 25, you're at 20.3. So that's kind of really where you're at. The General Government Finance Officers Association recommends the reserve to be no less than 2 months, which would be 13.9 million. And you guys are at 13 point, I just,
255.
yeah, everything's right there where everything kind of says to be. So that's kind of your general fund. Did you have any questions with any of the general fund stuff? I know there was a lot of information.
Not yet, but you said there's books downstairs where
Yes.
our Mel is, Mel and room?
No, we actually, we're in our office, I can run down and actually get you
Oh,
some.
no,
right
no,
now.
I know where to get them, I just want to know. I'll
Yeah,
come
we
and get one.
decided, I didn't know who all wanted them, so we had sent out an email saying,
Yeah.
either I'll put one in your box, you can go, tell you they're online. I just know a couple aldermen said, well, I think I'll try it online, not carry the book around, but
Yeah.
we certainly have copies.
Go to page 9 then. This kind of goes through your insurance funds. You guys are self-funded. And your health insurance fund, you can see from a standpoint from comparing 16 to 15, did have an operating loss, again, of almost 600,000. So the change in net position was a negative 583, bringing your net position down to $1.5 million at the end of 16. That's about 10% of your claims. We normally, again, that's a little low from what we like to see. We like to see about 2 months. So, speaking with the finance office, they're aware of it, and they're looking at building that back up in the future.
One thing, a good thing to say is, through maybe May or June, the health claims versus what was projected it's running below projection right now. It's only at 90-some% of projection. So for 2017, we're having a better year. We were in a much different situation at this time a year ago. We were well over 100% of projection, or prorated projections. So that will help if we continue on that track.
And because you are self-funded, that can swing so much if you have a couple high costs mixed in there. And then page 10 is your workers' comp fund, and that one also had a negative change in that position to 115,000, bringing the deficit of that fund to a $353,000 deficit at the end of the year. A lot of that was based upon an estimate that's done, so it's called an IBNR, incurred but not reported claims, what the estimate is of what that will be in the future. That was the big reason that swung, and I don't know if Diane, if you have anything else to really say about that.
We also look at the fourth line down, which is actually the actual workers' comp claims that had come through. We also had a very high year in workers' comp claims. So not only the actuals hit, from 15 and 16 we had high claims, and then because of that we had some additional reserves that were put on the books. So that's what drove our fund balance to go even farther in the deficit. The revenues, actually, we had from 2016 to 15 to 16, we did budget an additional $50,000. If you look in the middle of the total non-operating revenues, we did go from 945 to 994. We knew it was low, and we budgeted an extra 50,000, so we will certainly have to look at that and see how this year is running again as we get closer to budget time, but we may have to look to maybe budget more for workers' comp. Again, if the claims continue to what the pace they are. I know, as you know, Colleen is working hard on the workers' comp and working with the departments to try to reduce the claims. But we'll have to probably discuss this at budget time, and we'll have better numbers by then.
Do you have a breakdown, Diana, as far as the worker comp? You know, what offices, what departments?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't have it with me, but I definitely can share with you.
That'd be nice to see. I mean, I'm just looking at Public Works, you know, that with automated type services that, you know, it might be less.
Mhm.
So I just would like to know that, you know, what the might be.
And then page 11 is your liability self-insurance fund, and that one had a positive change in that position of 178,000. And that one does have a somewhat healthy net position, but part of that net position is non-spendable because to start where you're working with CIVMIC there, about $4.8 million is set aside that you can't spend because you already gave that to CIVMIC, which in the case that they were to dissolve, which we talked, is probably not going to happen. You can't spend that money because CIVMIC is holding it. So,
How
so-
should I think about that 4.8 million with Civmec? Is that equity that the city owns in Civmec, or?
pretty much.
We
I mean-
we actually met with this, a representative, Michelle from Sysmic, and she has said that over time, she has worked with many different municipalities and explained how that 4.8 should not be on our books anymore, and we kind of talked about it, Dawn brought it up to you, we kind of talked about it, we hadn't had the proof or we hadn't had the information. Michelle, over the last the lady from Sysmic, has provided us information showing debt payments in which we have recouped, they have paid back the $4.8 million, and that was in the time period of 2000 and early 2000s. So this really needs to come off the books, so
Yep.
it is not going to be on our books next year, it's really, we showed it as a receivable, like a deferred receivable, or, but at this point, that 4.8 does not belong on their books,
So-
based on the information I had received.
So if I understand right, the city back in 1987 bonded for this money
Correct,
and gave it to Civmec, was part of funding the origins of Civmec?
yes.
And you're saying that Civmec has paid all that back?
Yes, she gave us a debt schedule, and we were able to verify some of the last payments. Just because our systems were so old, we could have probably gone to the basement and found financial records. But could prove in 2002 and 2003, we could go back in the systems and we could see those receipts matching to the penny on what they said they had paid us back.
Okay.
So that was enough proof that we believed her story, and, or that they had paid it back in full. So I know Brookfield was another one, I think that just in the last year or two has taken it off their books and
Yep.
have changed their notes to take it off. So
Yep.
this is a discussion we were gonna be having with them, so that it would not show up and it would be corrected in our next CAFR, but by the time we got the information, the CAFR was completed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so.
Because I was given some information about this by Alder Nennig some time ago, that's what drew my attention to it. Do you have any other questions, Alderman?
No, I knew a little bit of the history of it because I was involved when we first got started, and I knew that we basically bonded, all the municipalities bonded an amount to capitalize the fund at the start. I wasn't aware that we had been paid back all those funds, so.
And then on top of it, now what we do is we also get interest, annually, we get an interest payment for being, I guess, for having that, help start up that company. So we do get an interest payment on a yearly basis,
Yep, you get
a premium or.
a dividend or whatever,
Thank you.
depending on how the Civic does.
Call it for dividend.
And so next year, or I guess the year that we're currently in, 2017, it'll probably be showing us a prior period adjustment, and that will be showing, that's why we want to kind of break apart. Right now, it's net position, but it's really, you have about, about $800,000 in that fund.
How much is the annual dividend that we get from
It
them?
is actually on, about halfway down the page, it's called Dividend from Civmec. And the last, in 2016 was 136,000, the year before was 156. And I don't remember all the details, but Michelle had gone through it, how it let us know that ahead of time, they can tell us what our dividends is going to be for like for next year's budget. And there's a formula based on how so many dollars and the percentage that they're gonna turn back to all the municipalities. So we actually will know this number at budget time.
So help me understand, is that a dividend anchored to the equity stake that we put forward to begin with? And the reason I asked Diana is I know the law department had some discussion about whether we wanted to continue insuring with Civmec.
That
If we
is
stop
true.
insuring with
There's,
Civmec, does that go away, or do we still get that?
no, this money would go away. This as long as we're part of their group, and depends upon their fund balance and how their claims come in, revenues versus claims. If there's extra, that is, I guess it's, I don't want to say call it extra, but if their fund balance is large enough, they will pay a portion of the dividends back to all the municipalities. So that would go away. That would, however, whoever we would go to potentially might have a similar program.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that point, Alderman Slack.
Yes, that's kind of where your liability, self-insurance fund sits. And like I said, that will look a little different in 2017 with the change, with all the information that was in the midst, and it's like, well, that's a big number, we don't want to do
We
that.
have more paperwork to share with you.
Yeah. And then just kind of some comments and recommendations for our audit. In the previous year, in our 2014 management letter, We noted that this, with the system conversion, that when the city went through their system conversion, resulted in delays in reconciling certain balance sheet accounts. We're happy to say that that did not occur in 2016, and the city's finance department is up and running and doing everything timely once, the conversion happened. That's timely there. So the audit went very well for that standpoint. I mean, and previous years, we were coming in, and this year it went great. Couple new accounting pronouncements. Fair value that was implemented for the current, or the 2016 audit. So that's just kind of informational there. There's a new pronouncement coming that will be, that you guys will have to work on next year, is GASB 75, which really the actuarials, you just need one more actuarial study. You talked about with your HR about the retirees on your health insurance. That's really having to do with that. So really you'll get a new actuarial study, they'll do all the numbers, and then hopefully over time, you'll go away because you kind of are phasing people out of the post-employment benefits. So again, just more informational for you, and so I do believe you will need an actuarial study.
Yes.
Probably working on that right now.
Yep, thank you.
Yep. Uniform grant guidance, that was implemented second year of 2016. And the city's doing a very good job. Pam and Diana are really driving that, and they're doing a very good job implementing it and keeping that up with that standard. So that's a continuous process. You're always continuing that. If you get some new grants with the city, you can get some new federal grants, so it's always good to have those.
I think centralizing control made a lot of sense on that.
Yep. Strong recommendation from Shank, and then we followed through having bringing somebody in to more concentrate on our grants.
Good.
And she's still here.
I mean, that's really about it. The rest is an appendix. It's really what we call the management representation letter. It's just a lot of required audit practices that pretty much Diana and Pam signed. Pretty much says that they gave us everything that we wanted and didn't withhold any information. If you want some reading material, feel free to read that. But like I said, there's some good information in here. I mean, they prepared this. There's a lot of statistical information, and we were just kind of chuckling looking at this when you guys were talking. I mean, even as far as what hospital does your ambulance bring patients to? And it was just like, whoa, I didn't even realize that was in there. And so like, there's some good information of the city in here, financial and just statistical information. So, and from our standpoint, the audit went very well. Finance department was very easy to work with, and they do a great job.
Good.
Anything else?
Very much. Any questions?
Move to receive and place on file.
Second?
Got a motion and a second, receive and place on file, report, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
No, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
guys.
Deb. Thank you.
And that moves us on to item number 6, consideration of possible action on the proposed amended and restated cooperation agreement and the second amended and restated pledged and security agreement for use of room tax.
Move to approve.
I would second that.
Got a
as well.
motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
We have one no. All right, that passes. And item number 7 is report of the finance director.
Not too much new information, just want to, have you put these on your calendar? We have a joint finance and personnel meeting to discuss budget on November 7th. And then we also have the common council budget meeting on November 14th. So our timing calendar, budget calendar has gone out. We are starting to work on the first steps of our budget for 18.
Guys, I just got one question. I just, see if you feel the same way. I would almost like to see the budgets that are turned into the mayor so we can see what they're looking for, and compare them from each department. I know we requested that in the past.
We have, I mean, I've asked that from specific departments. And
I
they've
did
given
every
it to
year
me,
so far, and I've never
but
received one.
I suppose if we all want to receive the same thing, we could
Okay.
certainly make that request. To see the same thing the mayor sees on the first proposal?
So-
Yes,
We
the
can look
first
at it ahead of
proposal.
time.
Whatever the budget that they enters the mayor's room, I think we should see that.
Well, if it gets every alder person more involved in the budget starting on day 1, then
Yeah,
I think that's
Then
that
we'll
would
save
be
a lot
great
of
thing.
time.
Yeah, I agree.
I would suggest you might want to ask to be included on the meetings that the department heads are having with the mayor to discuss the budget.
during the
Yeah.
day.
Good idea.
It's one thing. to
See, I
use-
talk to them individually. I talk to the mayor, then I talk to them individually, and they tell me what they have, and the mayor tells me what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's a good idea.
They usually start, those meetings are usually mid-September is when they start
During the
having.
day.
That's when the majority of the budget is turned in by department heads, and then that's when they start having meetings with the mayor.
Do they do it individually? Obviously, because you'd have too much going on, so
Yes.
individually,
Yeah.
right, so.
Yep.
Couldn't see a round table there.
All
Okay.
right, that's it.
Take a
Motion received and placed on file.
Second.
motion second, receive and place on file the director's report. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Zero?
You know, I can
All
look on my email, but my phone's only this big. I don't have a laptop.
You need to go get a Tandy. It's a new brand computer.